yeah, I'm here today. I'm really pleased to be here with such an amazing group of folks from various different parts of the in-game advertising industry. And so Paul mentioned it already. I'm Katie. For those of you who don't know me already, I run Beeswax's business across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And yes, in other circumstances, we would probably be in the south of France enjoying some sunshine this last week or around this time of year. But instead, I'm joined by a brilliant panel from across Europe. And I will ask each of them to introduce themselves. Now, Christian, would you mind starting? Oh, you are really in the sunshine.
You can hear me too. I am, and I actually got that drink as well. So afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian. Bulk of my career was as an Adtech specialist in Google, a science partner at Facebook, and now the founder and CEO of AudioMob.
Great. And Guillaume, please join us.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm with French here, so I'm ready to tell you that every one of you is welcome in Cannes, of course, where the weather must be very warm. Unfortunately, I'm in Paris, confined today, but I'm very happy to be here. Let me introduce myself as being the CEO of Gatsby, which is a company specialized in in-game advertising. Previously, I founded the company Millebris, which is a leader in the digital press distribution, which I sold back in 2017 to the Artist Group. So I guess it was already content distribution and targeting and measurability, which are the topic I'm sure that we will be speaking about in a few minutes.
Yeah, don't give the game away too much, but I'm fairly sure those topics might well come up. And Rob, welcome.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for inviting us on. So Venitus is a global advertising technology platform. We focus on gaming and entertainment. Basically, we monetize publishers' inventory. We work with publishers like EA and Rovio. We reach 250 million gamers a month. That's across everything: desktop, mobile, console, and do everything from display, video, sponsorship, programmatic, and even old-fashioned direct IOs.
Brilliant. What a range, Rob. Thank you. And and Vanessa, welcome.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Vanessa. I'm the marketing director at Bidstack. Previously, I was at Adtech, which is now Silver Bullet Group. But Bidstack are an in-game advertising platform. And we recently were awarded the IAB Gold Standard, which we're immensely proud of. And we were verified, or the IAB verified that we're the first multi-device in-game advertising platform to achieve the certification. So yeah, we're extremely chuffed. And you know, with companies like Venitus trying to pave the way forward in terms of in-game advertising.
Brilliant. Well, I think we've all got a lot of different perspectives to share on the call today. I'd love to know a little bit more about each of your businesses, but also hear a bit more about how the concept of in-game advertising has changed over the last 5-10 years. I know there's been this sort of huge transformation in the space. Christian, as the newest company represented today, what's the change how has the concept changed for you?
It's changed in a number of ways. So I guess to give a background on what we do in context of that. So AudioMob, we provide rewarded audio, and we're the first company to bridge an $18 billion audio ads market to the $17 billion gaming world. And we also provide non-intrusive rewarded audio formats in mobile games. And the way that we're bridging this isn't just developing patent pending technology for the game developers. We're actually standardizing how the programmatic ecosystem works specifically for this new advertising medium. Now, the way that we've come up with this concept obviously is analyzing what's gone on over the last 10 years. You think back to 2010, the most popular phone was the iPhone 3GS. The most popular game was a simple 2D game called Fruit Ninja. And the average players used to be kids. Now they expand across every single demographic. But in terms of mobile gaming, yeah, it used to be kids. And the ad formats, they evolved within this medium as full screen interstitials, video ads, games that block the player from the primary function. And this includes what we've moved to in terms of advertising. We've moved towards more non-intrusive ads, such as billboards and native display ads, and rewarded audio ads that we also provide. Everything is moving towards a medium where you do not block the player. We've also seen exponential advancements in mobile technology. We're now seeing mass adoption of more advanced mobile games, more clever gaming mechanics. Games are certainly more addictive than they were in the mobile space, as well as the console space, than they were 10 years ago. And we're seeing the merge of console gaming audiences and mobile gaming audiences, which is partly the reason for the exponential growth in mobile. And this is thanks to the advancements in game engine design. Fortnite, PUBG, they were on the console, and now you can pull out your phone and play it straight on your phone. And more players are being tuned into wanting to get rewards as well for said ads, such as power-ups and things like that. So yeah, those are what we've viewed over the last 10 years, the major changes.
Wow. Does anyone else have something to add? Because I know that I think quite a lot of you have seen some of those same transformations.
Yeah, as Christian says, in-game advertising has been around for a very long time, and many companies have made attempts to place ads in the game that do not block and do not disrupt, which is the global experience. I remember playing a pole position back in the 80s. I was and seeing advertising from Marlboro, which is something that we wouldn't see, I guess, today. Now, after all these attempts, the technologies allows this in ads, properly, but the challenges remain. First of all, we have to keep in mind that the gamer has to be happy. Second, the studio must have some control and significant revenues out of it, and maybe more than the revenues they get from rewarded videos. And third, the advertiser must reach the perfect audience. So that's really what's, I would say, at stake today, to take advantage of what's possible from a technical point of view and change the way it is done for ages and maybe for decades, and that didn't work and didn't generate sufficient revenues. And that's exactly what we try to do at Gatsby, such as others are doing. And we are focused and invested a lot of effort in technology because we believe that technology will make a difference in this area. And we believe that the fact that technology wasn't there yesterday was something that was very important in the fact that this particular market didn't bring what was at stake and what all its potentials. So Gatsby adds in game, because we are also funny in France and not only in the UK. It is really about that, and we sit between the advertiser and the game studios to bring that new technology. It's not about bringing out to the market, for me, another advertising solution.
No, but it's interesting, that different dynamic perhaps compared to digital advertising in other scenarios where you don't have that same triangle, those same three pillars of priorities with the users, the game studios, and the advertisers sort of separately. Vanessa, is that something you'd like to like? Is that same sort of three-pronged approach that you take?
Yeah. So for Bidstack, we focus purely on ad spaces that already exist within the game. Anything from like open world billboards to racetrack banners to stadium LED billboards. Those are the types of spaces that we would only serve our creatives in. We wouldn't add structures or impose any type of additional ad spaces within the game, because one, it would just look unnatural. Two, the gamers would definitely see and would start getting a lot of negative feedback from the gamers, and therefore kind of putting our relationship with the game publisher, you know, off kilter. So in terms of kind of the three triangles with us, it's definitely in play. Not only do we have to look after what brands and advertisers want to gain from their campaigns and their media plans and their strategies, but then at the same time, we've also got to have a really good understanding and really good rapport with the game publishers to give them confidence that we know what we're doing, we're gamers too. We understand the whole cycle, the development cycle from end to end, and we understand the gaming industry as well. And we 100% want to protect the environment as much as we can, but all we want to try and do is elevate that experience for the gamer, and it essentially creates an even more sort of brand positive relationship between the gamer and the brand and the advertiser.
And Rob, is that something that is also important? I mean, how do you think about user behavior, user experience, gamer experience?
Well, I think one of the things we've all covered, everybody's described different versions of what they call in-gaming. And this is the key to find out, you know, what is in-game advertising? Is it console games, mobile games? Is it actually within the game, so we're not disrupting the game at all? So it's billboards or it's trackside? Is it actually, if somebody goes to another level, they can power up and they're playing FIFA and they want a new player and they can get a video? So it's key to understand what is in-game advertising, because you've then got to transcend that across to the advertisers themselves. Now, advertisers traditionally want what they're used to, and that's video or display. Then you're trying to work out, okay, we're going to offer them in-game, and is that going to be a billboard? Is it going to be clickable? Is it not going to be clickable? So one of the keys for us all is to get across what is actually in-game. And they can be actually the environment you're in, as you said, the FIFA billboard or a billboard as you're going around Sims. Or are we going to be talking about, as you're going through the game, you play Fortnite and you wait. You know, I watch my son play Fortnite all the time, and he has 30 seconds every time waiting for all the game to start again. Is there going to be a video in there? Is that in game? So it's key for us to get a clear understanding, so advertisers can actually understand what we're offering.
And do you think that's become, has that become clearer in the last 10 years, or has that become more challenging as formats have sort of expanded?
I think technology's made it easier. You know, when Microsoft bought Massive 15 years ago for 200 million, that was a great investment. There was just no technology to deliver the ads. Now there's a lot of technology to deliver the ads. Unfortunately, fortunately, the whole world's moved much quicker as well. So now we need technology such as moat or IAS. So we want viewability, etc. We want brand safety. So they're all new things we're bringing in. This is a lot easier to bring into a mobile game than into a AAA title. You know, it's somebody spent 400 million building COD. You've got to be very careful what kind of technology you're going to put in there to deliver an ad, compared to a hyper casual game or a quick mobile game that people play for 5 minutes, and you can actually do an SDK integration into it and control it much quicker. So yeah, it's moved on massively in 10 years, but then we've got more challenges to get them over as well.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that a bit deeper and talk a bit more about the sort of technology. And I'm keen, obviously, from a Beeswax perspective, to understand how each of you use programmatic technology to innovate and to evolve your media offering and meet those needs of all of the stakeholders. You know, the advertiser, the gamer, and the studio needs. Who'd like to start on that one? Vanessa, have you got some views on how programmatic technology is helping with the innovation?
Sure. So from Bidstack's perspective, our technology is end-to-end proprietary. So everything that we built, we own. And in terms of sort of appeasing the advertising and brands, yes, we can definitely do reach, we can do real time. It's the usual kind of metrics, performances in terms of brand only, not performance, with our version of native in-game advertising that we can deliver for the advertiser. Now, from the game developer perspective, our technology is supposed to not hinder the game performance at all. So our SDK is super lightweight. It has our game developers sort of development cycle in mind. So making sure that it's lightweight, making sure that in terms of integration times, how much resources that we're going to need to have in order for the integration to be as smooth and successful from the game developer and game publisher. It's all that we've also considered when we do all of these integrations when we've got inventory onboarding as well. So yeah, I mean, in terms of going back onto the programmatic piece, we pretty much can integrate with any of our clients' favored DSP. So at the moment, it seems like most of our clients are with Trade Desk, and that integration has been great. But that as and when more people want to do in-game advertising with BidStack, we'll be able to smooth out that process and make it a lot faster for everyone to be happy with.
Very cool. And Rob, how about you? How is sort of programmatic driving innovation with you and the team?
So again, this comes back to ad formats. Programmatic, if we're doing FIFA, we do programmatic video on. Absolutely brilliant, no problem at all. PG, everything works absolutely smoothly. Same as if we do something with Rovio, on Angry Birds, etc., we can do programmatic. I think the challenge comes is when you're talking about programmatic within the game, where you've got bespoke ad units. You're talking about a AAA title. You know, programmatic is great, but it's still not as controlled as a direct IO. And you know, advertisers got to be careful. The game studios got to be careful. So I think that's more of a challenge. Open RTB, even programmatic guaranteed within billboards, etc., I think is a lot harder than actually the programmatic that we've got in place, and just, you know, it fits in with everybody's stack at the moment, and that's reward video as you're playing a FIFA or you're playing Need for Speed and you have a power up or something like that. So I think, again, in our industry, we always try and rush and race and run before we can walk type of thing. And I think the actual, from my experience, the programmatic within that bespoke ad units is going to be, it's tricky. I think BidStack and a couple of others have got the technology, but then it's got to be transitioned across to the buyers to actually be going out and buying it, and it's something separate to what they're buying. So it's going to happen, but it's going to take a couple of years, in my opinion.
And Guillaume, I'm interested to hear your views on this, just because your journey prior to Gadsden with Munibris, you know, you really helped a lot of traditional publishers to embrace newer technologies. Are you seeing the same trajectory, the same challenges?
In fact, programmatic technology for me often rhymes with low CPM and poor targeting. And sometimes it also rhymes with fraud. So we have to be very careful, not speaking about technical matters, what Vanessa referred about, hindering the performances of the game, which is a central point also. So low CPM, poor targeting, maybe fraud. So we have to be very careful. And what we worked on a lot at Gatsby is the fact that we build technologies that can bring player characters in information, so programmatic can be more relevant and more present. So the gamers, for the gamers, it would mean more relevant ads for them, and the gameplay experience, I guess, would be more harmonious, less disruptive. When you enter the Gatsby universe as a game studio, you set all the parameters on which kind of advertising you want, you don't want, and then the Gatsby platform, I would say, routes the correct ads from various sources of programmatic, so to, I would say, get the best CPM out of it, and the best target. So we have to be careful with program. I fully agree with what Rob was saying. We have to be careful in order to bring out to the game studios and to the brands both the objectives of in-game advertising, which are in the end high CPM and perfect gameplay, most perfect gameplay.
No, that's really interesting to hear. And again, keeping those two ideals at the fore. Christian, I know with AudioMob, you're obviously very focused on enabling programmatic as it's such a sort of dominant transaction mechanism for buyers. How are you thinking about it in terms of it helping you to innovate and evolve?
Yeah, so to be honest, there's a lot of room for innovation because we're the first to do it. So just for the audience, so we're on the same page. I mean, if you're being blocked by, let's say, a video ad in a mobile, the research that we've done and the technology we're producing will enable a player to opt in to listen to an audio ad while they're playing the game instead of being blocked by that annoying video ad. So there are so many opportunities as to how we can innovate, and of course we've got great partners like Beeswax to help us accomplish this at scale. First one is, we're going to have to prepare for a post-cookie world. And in terms of how we pass GDPR compliant data to enhance targeting, this is very, very difficult in the audio space because the audio space is still aggregated around, the Spotifys and the SoundClouds and all of these big publishing houses with arguably, walled gardens in the context of data. But in terms of how AudioMob can integrate with games in order to get that data, even if there wasn't a cookie, for instance, even if targeting data is stripped back, there's very, very interesting things we can do with things like the mobile ID, the in-game app ID, in order to help contextualize and also, in some words, more precisely target these players. So it's really interesting there. The second thing is the non-interruptive ad format. So we do something called audio passback, which means that we have to understand what the audio state of a given game is, as well as the device. So that when a video ad, for instance, comes in, what happens right now is that the user could be listening to Spotify or something, and then the video ad comes in and it blocks out the user's Spotify track, or it plays over it, the user exits the app, and then you've got a drop of retention and a really annoyed gamer. So what we can do is we can start passing back, what are the audio states of the phone? What's the volume level? Is the mute switch on? We can pass back all of these different data points so a advertiser can more effectively target a user and make sure that they know that the user's actually got their audio on and that they can hear it. Outside of that, there's obviously the partnership with Beeswax. Can't go into too much detail, but the amount of interesting R&D that we're doing to scale this ad format across the industry is absolutely fascinating. And the supply side partners that Beeswax can provide in this whole partnership will definitely enable us to do this rapidly. And the last thing is it's an unprecedented opportunity for advertising opportunities and advertising requests. So in the context of audio, you've got a long form format like music, for instance, and you might get an ad request pre-roll, mid-roll, end-roll. So it could be every couple of minutes, for instance. But with a game, there's always someone that's going to need a power-up or someone that's going to die in the game. There are going to be so many more ad requests from this game. And the way that the systems need to be built to compensate those ad requests for the audio ad industry, which is built on a completely different system, that in itself is a massively large opportunity. And those points are the way that we're leveraging programmatic to make this happen.
No, that's really interesting. And I'd love to dig in a little bit more to the first point you made with some of the other panelists around, you were talking about targeting and identity. And I think, in the digital space, we're so used to hearing brands focusing on sort of traditional performance metrics, brand safety, viewability, click-through rates, conversions, that sort of thing. How do those metrics convert into the in-game space? And maybe conversely, even in digital, no one should really be thinking about click-through rates anymore. So what metrics should brands care about in the in-game space? Maybe Rob, would you mind starting?
Yeah, again, I keep saying you have to split them both out. So if you've got something like BidStack or one of the sponsorships we're doing, it's more about brand awareness. You're not going to get, you're not going to get any click-through rates, and the last thing Vanessa wants is anybody trying to click on one of the banners and go race.
I don't even know how you would do it.
And that's more again. I always go back. Maybe I'm older than everybody else. I think it more look the product placement when you're watching great films and great products in the right place. Exactly. If BidStack, I'm not sure who they work with, but if they were working with one of the an EA title who's FIFA or something, and you're talking about the branding around, and then you go something where you go to the video ads. Not all video ads are that annoying, I assure you. Then you've got everything. You've got the viewability, you've got VTR, and you've got CTR. And actually, the results from gamers is phenomenal. One of the biggest things we've seen over the last 12 months, and actually over the last 3 months has been massive for Veritas, is actually the new advertisers that are coming to us and actually seeing how good, you know, it's all in the news at the moment because of COVID. Gaming is through the roof, and we've all got twice as much inventory, and it's, I can't say it's been good for us, but it's certainly highlighted gamers to advertisers, and we brought some new advertisers in, and they're actually seeing how good our results are. So people who weren't normally advertising in gaming, they hear it's all on the media, they're testing it and actually seeing that our VTRs are fantastic, it's viewable, it's brand safe. Again, you've got to be careful, you know, you've got to decide what you're buying. You know, if you're buying FIFA, you know there's nobody getting shot. If you're buying Call of Duty on Twitch or something like that, you've got to be careful. And that's one of the big things about esports at the moment, knowing what you're buying. But actually, the metrics and the KPIs, gaming performs incredibly well.
Vanessa, would you is it similar sort of KPIs for your business?
Yeah, so I think one thing to note, and kind of reiterating what Rob said, is that in-game advertising and gaming is a completely different ball game when it comes to metrics and, you know, and measurability, really. So viewability definitely is one. Being able to identify what a viewable impression is one of the projects that we've been working on. And actually, in terms of viewable impressions, what BidStack has defined as a viewable impression is 100% in view for at least 2 seconds. Compare that to display, I think it's something like 50% of the creative in view for 1 second. So we're already... Yeah, so we're already holding ourselves to a higher standard to display just because we know what engagement rates are like when a gamer is, you know, within that environment, and also for advertisers to understand the value of in-game advertising. The other kind of metric, let's say, that we've been trying to develop is attention. So we've been working with Lumen Research, who are an eye tracking research specialists, and we've ran we've ran a couple of brand uplifts with them in the last couple of months. But last year we actually commissioned a piece of research around eye tracking, specifically of what they know, across a couple of our titles. And what we found out was that for all of our titles, in terms of attention rate compared to display, it's much higher than display. So for our racing titles, in terms of attention, it was double than what was getting from display. And with football titles, we will get 3 times as much attention to the ad that was served in the football environment compared to display. So again, it's being able to, not trying to create more work for the advertiser to understand, you know, in-game advertising is a completely different new channel, but it is educating everyone to say the way we look at in-game advertising as a emerging channel is something that works. It has to be a completely different ball game to what we've been used to, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to future-proof media for years to come.
Guillaume, similar metrics from your side, or are you seeing brands asking for anything else?
Well, to be very honest, and I guess that everybody knows that, brand safety, accurate viewability, click-through rate, conversions rate are indeed very basic metrics in the advertising world. I guess that in the in-game advertising world, we need to go much further than that. Not only claiming, I would say, correctly managing those parameters. And it's all the more true that game studios, and especially mobile game studios, they use tons of technologies to know and to forecast the lifetime of a game, to forecast the number of users, to forecast what's to change anywhere in the game. So they have a higher day one, a higher day three, higher D7. So I'm really impressed since almost 2 years since I'm working with game studios, how the game studios are aware and concerned about all the measurements of what the player is doing within the games. That's why we've been working since a year in building our own source with our own metrics based on, of course, brand safety, viewability, and accurate viewability. We are a few number of companies that is doing very accurate viewability in games. So all those concepts of, I would say, performance metrics match with what the game studio already have the habit to manipulate to make sure that his game is going to be a rock star game and to stay as a rock star game. So I guess that the metrics of in-game advertising shall match every other metrics, and especially about the being able to test all the creatives. One creatives can work more than another. How do you do that in-game advertising? More A/B testing is key also in this area. So again, I guess that we all know how to manipulate the standard metrics of advertising. We have as professional, whereas it would be at Venatus or Bitstack or on your board or everywhere, to think about the step further.
And yeah, it's interesting to always keep that user experience, that gamer experience, sort of front and central as you're thinking about this. And Christian, I'm really interested to hear how audio might be different, because obviously a video completion rate isn't quite going to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, there's key metrics such as audibility. Was the sound actually on at least 30%, so you can actually listen, that the user can actually hear the ad? That's obviously going to be important. But one of the most important metrics, and this is actually relating to audio and everything else, I'll describe a concept and then tell you how that relates to retention and the success of a game. So it's some research that we're doing on positive and negative priors, i.e., if a user has a prior, let's say, negative experience to consuming an ad at any point close to the consumption of the ad, whether they don't like the brand, for instance, or whether the ad is actually blocking them, they are less likely to consume it. And it leads to things like dilution, where someone watches a video, they flip over the phone, go do something else, then comes back. And it all links to this web of data, such as the fact that there's 2.7 billion gamers, yet 80% of ads are just gaming ads. Users don't just want to see gaming ads. And the fact that brands still have yet to penetrate the mobile medium in a way where they can actually target users with something other than gaming. It's just something that we've seen. And the reason that links to retention is that if someone is obviously retention in terms of the gameplay and the acceptance of the ad, is that if they see something they don't like or it's blocking them, they're just gonna, it's gonna damage the game and then damage the metrics of the acceptance of the ad. Now, the reason that retention and the in-game metrics that make a mobile game successful are important is because it's to do with scale micro audiences. So advertisers tend to buy on mediums that have brand value, that's understandable. Hundreds of millions of players play Candy Crush, Clash of Clans, Call of Duty, etc. However, there's a lot of players that play a plethora of mobile games with interesting mechanics, and the mechanics are what makes the game addictive. So they switch between these games pretty often as well. The DAU, daily active users, the retention, how long is that player actually in that game, can help measure this. And it's the reason why Call of Duty, Angry Birds, and all these games aren't in the top 10 or even the top 20 games on the App Store. It's all these games that you've heard about, which you would have never thought of advertising in. These are the kinds of games that you should be advertising, because it's the thing that is hooking the user where they're paying the most attention. And of course, through things like rewarded audio, you can reach those users without blocking the game. at a decent CPM. So yeah, those are a couple of points.
Yeah, no, interesting things to measure, and I'm really keen to revisit a little bit, just coming out in terms of the performance metrics. But Rob, you mentioned before that through the pandemic, you've seen more brands coming into this space. I'm really keen to hear from each of you on who you really see doing kind of innovative work. Which are the brands who you see innovating in this space, and maybe the flip side of that, like who's missing out, who should be doing more. Rob, do you want to start? Just because I know it's something you've brought up before.
Yeah, so we've all benefited from the game advertisers advertising over the time. More people are gaming, more people can get downloads, and not just the mobile in-app, which there is a lot of direct DR game advertisers there, but actually across AAA titles and the big brands that we're talking about, that COD have been spending, Epic been spending, great, brilliant, we're all benefiting from that. But I did a quick grab this morning just to look at the advertisers we've got running yesterday, and I'm taking the rest of the world. So actually Walmart was our biggest advertiser yesterday outside of COD, which is fantastic. But we look at the UK, government, Navy, O2, Amazon, Lynx, Apple, Ralph Lauren. I mean, if I'd have done, and I've been doing this for 10 years, been running Benetus. The likes of Ralph Lauren advertising within gaming 5 years ago, unheard of. So it's great that we're now seeing some traditional brands really getting involved. Mercedes have been spending great in the esports, in the gaming environment, but we're getting a fraction of what we should get. I mean, literally, somebody asked me where we are in the gaming ecosystem for advertising, and we haven't hit 10% yet. We haven't got your P&Gs, your Unilevers. Yeah, they're dipping their toes in, and we've done some great. We won some awards with Unilever, but considering how much they spend across the rest of media, that's the big thing at the moment. Everybody, gaming is a buzzword. It's now time for stopping a buzzword and actually transacting, and the big brands getting involved. Not just ad hoc, there's a new game release, there's a new film out. Yes, we benefit from that, but I'm talking the everyday Unilever brands, the Kias, the Hondas, who advertise every single day, really embracing gaming.
And Guillaume, which sort of brands are you seeing? Sort of, is it similar? Is it mainstream brands? Is there some?
Well, first of all, gamers is a very hard to reach audience, and ads in games are particularly relevant in sports games, urban games, FPS, massively popular realistic and contemporary games. So I guess, just like Rob, we will find every brand very soon in every game. So some brands are currently doing some test, I would say, campaigns over the games, and we can see that currently in some games, but in a very short time, we will find them all.
It's definitely happening. And Christian, in the audio space?
So one thing our brilliant CRO of AudioMob, Benny Williams, is always saying is that a lot of brands have missed the opportunity of games over the last 10 years because they assumed that it was just gamers playing the game and all they wanted to see was games, and now there's 2.7 billion of them. And the data that you can get, especially in a post-cookie world, from a game in order to still achieve precise targeting, gaming should be the number one priority for brands to master. And in terms of innovative brands that we've been seeing, that are really the early adopters in testing these native methods, and especially non-intrusive methods as well, trying to get rid of the negative prior that I was referring to earlier. The record labels are definitely at the forefront of this, off the back of the music concert in Fortnite. Microsoft's now doing a music concert in Minecraft, obviously ad-based. You've got Uber and Red Bull testing in mobile console game takeovers and levels, as well as VR applications. So these are the kind of brands that we're seeing that are really diving in that early adoption phase. But in terms of our company, I mean, we're a brand new medium, and it's not like we're disappointed in any brands not joining. It's just that they want to join. I mean, all of the DSPs, agencies that we're talking to, they are really trying to grab at this opportunity here. And we're a startup, we've launched, we're developing the technology to do this. So it's not really a question of who's missing out. It's just a question of when they will get involved, because they've seen this opportunity as an obvious one. And obviously Beeswax is going to help us get there at scale. So yeah, in the audio space, it's mostly positive, but it's because it is early days in our sector.
Mm. And Vanessa, are there any sectors that you think are, should be doing more and investing more heavily in this space? You don't have to name specific brands if you don't want to call anyone out.
I don't think it's sector based. I personally think everyone should be doing more. And on what Rob and Christian and Young were saying, there's a lot of coming out of the woodworks. A lot more advertisers and brands are becoming braver in terms of testing with this completely new and emerging channel. And if anything, we should be taking that courage and that bravery and keep on going, and be bolder, be braver, be bigger about the types of campaign and the results that you want to achieve, and work with platforms like us and Venetis, and just engulf yourself in in-game advertising and the gaming industry, because it is such an incredible industry to be a part of, and in just the quality of content that comes out of the gaming industry is just next level. But then also thinking outside of the box, we've got gaming. In-game advertising is just one form of you connecting to the gamer. Obviously, you've got the esports piece as well, and the gaming streaming piece too. So there's a lot of different options that advertisers and brands can actually get involved in. Obviously, do your research, make sure that you understand all the different subsets of gaming before you actually engulf yourself and everything like that. But once you're in, embrace it, because if anything, it's just going to give everything and more back to you.
Amazing. Well, I know we had a couple of other questions planned, but looking at the time, I'm really keen that we do answer the questions from the audience. So I'm going to just start to switch to some of those. Give me one second here. I should be able to load them on my screen. Yes, there we go. So, we've got a very open one to start with, and I'm sure everyone would want to respond to this. But does in-game advertising work, and how do you define a response? Who wants to go first at that?
If it doesn't work, we wouldn't be here.
Is there a question behind the question?
I think it's specifically in relation to the follow-up is and how do you define response? So I think it's in relation to performance there somewhat.
Again, it does come back to what you call in-game. It's you can have your DR, you can have your viewability, your CTR, depending on what format you're going with. If you're going with purely in-game, the billboards, etc., it's all about brand awareness. And there's the one thing that gaming is very good at is research and brand studies. So if anybody wants to speak to us about any brand studies, any research, that's one thing we are very long on.
Great. Well, Rob, there's another one, maybe a quick follow-up for you here, which is just at Rob, is that FIFA on consoles or only on mobile? Very specific.
At Rob, that is only on mobile. At the moment, it's only on mobile. The numbers are huge. But only on mobile.
And we have one more, which is also directed to Rob, but I think a number of the other panelists may want to follow up here. But what in particular makes programmatic within game app tricky for publisher and advertisers, as opposed to traditional programmatic rewarded video? So what makes programmatic within a games app more difficult than other forms of mobile video?
So within gaming, if you're talking reward video, it's it's not any different. Whether that's FIFA or real racing or Rovio, it's going to be a power-up. There's going to be, the user will get something for actually watching the video. So that's just the same as normal. No different.
I think the only thing I'm thinking of that might be trickier from a sort of technical perspective, if you were a brand, is quite often the auction might be carried out ahead of time, and then that the winning bidder would be effectively, that auction win would be cashed and held for a certain amount of time.
It can either be cashed or not cashed. That's entirely up to you.
Exactly, but that's the only element that may be slightly more different to other forms of video. I'm just a thought. No?
Yeah,
okay.
Not really. It works exactly the same for us, so no problem at all on that. Actually, we're doing more, programmatic within gaming is really growing at the moment. On our reward video side of it, really is.
Oh, good to know. This one is more of a legal GDPR question. With the browsers removing third-party cookies and global adoption of privacy legislation growing, does in-game advertising also have to adapt? Christian, I know that's something that we've talked about a bit previously. Would you want to start there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the massive issues, I'm obviously not going to name names, but across multiple companies, is that the way that their stacks have been built before and the way that they've integrated into supply, changing legacy infrastructures is definitely going to be more of a challenge, but absolutely doable. And there's lots of work going into that. In terms of what we do and the way we integrate into our gaming partners, and the way we organize our stack so that the compliance data that needs to be, whether it's GDPR, COPPA, or anything else that happens down the line, is just making sure that we are constantly educating our suppliers, our game developers, on what the requirements are in terms of making sure that they get user consent and things like that. And well, in my opinion, it's the job of the technology partners such as ourselves or anyone that are providing these ad units to make sure that the inventory that they are providing, the game developers are well versed in what the requirements are. So you have that brand safe inventory for the advertisers. So yeah, I mean, it is a potential problem, but it won't be as long as you are prepared for it. And again, the high fidelity data that you can get within a game in terms of app ID and things like that, we can use those IDs in order to assist targeting in a post-cookie world. So yeah.
We've got lots and lots of questions, so I'm going to keep them coming now. This one is asked by a marketing director for a number of TV channels at Warner Media, including the Cartoon Network, who says, as a marketer, I struggle with making sure that our ads are really noticed by kids within gaming, and not just seen as an interruption or just not noticed at all. What formats and innovations do you see coming down the pipeline that will really help to drive recall and engagement with ads, even as the best creative can just disappear in a noisy gaming environment? That's a great question.
A couple of things we've done. Love to show you the example of what we did with Rovio and Hot Wheels, which was fantastic. We actually, instead, you actually were firing the Hot Wheel cars into the game using the game mechanics. That won a load of rewards. That was brilliant. So again, a lot of the things we'll do with the kids we'll make mini games for them using your characters, which again embraces it. We did something with Plants vs Zombies with EA. We're actually using the advertisers' characters and the characters from the EA title. So again, that gets a lot more involvement in. But if you look at some of the research that comes out of reward video, and I've seen it where games have actually taken away reward video and literally get bombarded from users saying, where's my power up? I'm used to getting this. I used to watch a video. Why am I not getting it anymore? So it is part of the game. You know, the people stop thinking of it as people watching telly. Gaming is an entertainment. You're involved in it. You're actually involved in the game. And if the ad is targeted correctly at the right audience, so if you are targeting the right apps, etc., the right games, with Cartoon Network, etc., you will get the right kind of response, and you will get people participating in your ad.
Mm. And I think one thing to remember is that gamers specifically carved out time within their day to actually game. So whatever you serve will get noticed at some point. But so for us, let's say racing titles, repetition is key. So whether if it's the start point, the checkpoint banners, the roadside banners, the feather banners, how the creative is actually served, how the creative looks within the game has to be authentic as well. So anything that's sort of minimalism is the key for that type of environment. Whereas for a football title, when you're looking at LED billboards, we can definitely look at more sort of like the dynamic type of creative. So the creative isn't being ignored as such. It's you have to be a little bit more mindful about why the gamers are there in the first place and how are you going to be able to utilize that opportunity to the best.
And just off the back of that, it's a brilliant point that you absolutely got to be mindful of the gamer. What I was mentioning about ads that block gamers versus ads that don't, and how the creative is ingested in that way, a massively important factor. On the flip side of that, you've obviously got the data as well. Let's take Grand Theft Auto 5, one of the best-selling games of all time, and the in-game car radio. That has become one of the hottest properties in terms of getting music into, because they know of the impact that that game has on the music industry, just like Fever, just like Wipeout Fusion back 10 years ago. And in terms of audio, and what we're trying to do is understanding, what are the audio states? Is something actually being heard to or not? So we can get around the idea of ad dilution, so we can reassure our advertisers that something has actually been listened to. So outside of the creative and how it's implemented, it's basically the innovations around how we track whether something has actually been, whether an ad has actually been consumed, or whether ad dilution took place and the ad, didn't work at all.
Thank you. Yeah. We're going to have to move into quick fire round. We've got so many questions. Guillaume, you have a quick answer?
No, just want to say that it is truly a central question by Roman Gay. I was just referring to the number of creative created by game studios to promote their own games. And for promoting a single game, they create more than 600 creatives and test them one from one another with a lot of memorization mechanisms and measurements. This is what we have integrated in our platform, and this can be also another answer to what have been already proposed by the other panelists. I guess.
So quick fire, and I think this one is for Vanessa and Guillaume probably. Will it be a server-side connection to demand or client-side within the in-game placement?
Well, where's Vanessa? Go on, Vanessa.
No, you go first.
I'm French, I'm gallant. You.
Okay, I'm going to move you both on. I think it's probably one to take. That's one for whoever asked this to address with the panelists offline. I think.
I guess.
I have a great question here. How much would you recommend roughly for a media spend on gaming for effective results, either expressed as a number or a percentage of media plan spend? Did you say all of it, Rob?
Why not?
Rob, you literally read my mind, but I didn't want to say it.
And by the way, all of it to Venetus as well.
Rob, was it you who asked the question?
All I ask is people to treat gaming as a proper vertical. Yeah, we're not something new. We're not something just to test out and take in and dip out of. We're a proper vertical. There's hundreds of millions of pounds being spent in it. All the technology is there. Give us a fair slice of the budget and let us show what we can do.
Anyone want to argue with that?
It's just not even an argument, though. It's like I'm agreeing. Like, gaming is the fastest growing digital medium. It's growing quicker than music, than film, than anything else. All the eyes are on gaming devices right now, and it's only increasing. Based on that alone, in terms of what your media spend could be, it could literally be all of it, or it could be a good chunk, like 20 to 30%. Obviously, as it's a new medium, we need to take milestones in terms of guiding it, whether that comes out of your 10% innovation budget or your 20% innovation budget. We would say in general, more than is currently being spent on gaming absolutely needs to go into gaming, just because of the size of the audience and the amount of time your customers are spending on this medium.
Kristen, I think the next one is for you, and it should be a really quick one. How big is the audio opportunity globally?
Yeah, so the audio opportunity globally is, well, in the US alone, it's 18 billion. So if you take into account the other countries as well, we're talking about north of 20, 25. The CEO of Spotify has actually been mapping this out as well. The opportunity is absolutely massive. Reason being is that lots of users are now listening to podcasts and music and the advancement of mobile handsets and 4G data. It's very, very easy in order to consume audio via a mobile handset. So yeah, the audio opportunity is substantial, and it's growing in double digits every year.
And I'd love to end on just one final question about hiring in this space. I'd be really brief, but what have you found in terms of how easy is it, or how hard is it to find available talent? You know, do they need to be experts in front of agencies as well as experience with new media and gaming supply?
I think one key thing for us at BidStack is for the person to truly understand gaming and also understand how the opportunity overlaps within advertising. If we had a team who, you know, didn't really know the opportunity, didn't quite believe it, didn't really believe the services and the product that we delivered, then that's already roadmap to failure. So being passionate or having a level of understanding of both worlds is really key.
Brilliant. Thank you. With that, we are completely out of time. I'd love to say a big thank you to all of the panelists today for your time, energy, and insights that you've shared. I think we've had so many questions. It really proves how valuable the session was for everyone who joined. So thank you. And Paul, I believe we have another session coming up tomorrow.
Yes, we do. That is the future of media trading, all talking about the future here with all of our panels. So I will go ahead and send that link to all of you to sign up for that and join us then. And I'm just sending that out via the chat right now. So go sign up. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye.